Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Solari Reports for the Cash Substack. I'm your host and one of the authors of the Solari Cash Substack, Breeauna Sagdal, and I'm joined this afternoon by South Dakota State Representative John Sjaarda. And I'm really excited to have you on, John. Thank you for joining me. I'm excited to dig in and discuss the cash bill that was passed here in South Dakota, and most importantly, how it was passed. So, welcome and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and to be on here.
Awesome. Well, so you were you were elected recently, right? When were you first? Are you a freshman this year or
I'm
are
in
we?
the middle of my second term. So I was elected in 2022 and re-elected in 2024. So yep, I'm in the middle of my second term. So I have three sessions under my belt. So
You've gotten a lot done in that time frame, and you've quickly made a name for yourself as being an honest and honorable man. And that's happened pretty quickly. I mean, does it can you talk me through a little bit about, being elected and then what it's like getting to know your constituents and the relationships that you've developed with your colleagues?
sure, yeah, and I appreciate your saying that about me. No, getting elected, the best part of my campaigning was knocking on people's doors. We probably knocked on several thousand, and that was just the best way to talk to people, tell them who I was, ask them what they were excited about. A lot of them were excited, about the way that I thought about things, stood on things. So it was very fun to have people like that supporting you, wanting to vote for you. I just think I had a good feel for my district, what people in my district want. And yeah, it's just a good district and enjoy doing that.
Yeah, you do have an amazing district. I know some people there and it's pretty great. So, as you have developed relationships with colleagues, what would you say has been the most important part of developing those relationships, and most importantly, like getting legislation passed in the House and in the Senate?
So, there's a number of us that think alike and a number of, people that think differently than us. So it's just important to get your idea in front of everybody, get everybody thinking about it and excited about it. And there's a few times where there's people that maybe think differently than you on one subject that on something else they can agree with you on. So you make sure you don't burn bridges. You don't get upset that you think differently on one thing that you're not going to agree on. So later on, there's something else that you both agree on that, you can get on and get that passed. I think that helped with the cash bill because there were some people that voted, with me on that probably don't vote with me on some other things. So it was important to have that opportunity.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad you brought that up because I mean, obviously that's what we're here to talk about. But most importantly, as we're moving into a new legislative session, I think this is a really important time to discuss how good policies are passed by good people. And not to n- not to inflate your ego too much or anything, but I think what happened with this bill specifically is perhaps a case study for the future. And um, what one of the things that really captured me with the story of this bill passing was your Senate sponsor and his words to Susan Lucius when he said, first we have to be right with God. And I thought that was just very fascinating. So two things really. Oh, the other thing that really stood out to me about, Susan's experience and my own experience in the South Dakota legislature is some of the things that lobbyists say during testimony, eh, to lawmakers. So I'm curious, one, has it been surprising to you to hear some of these talking points? And then also, can you just tell us a bit more about living by your principles? One of my favorite quotes from your prior Speaker of the House, Representative Steve Haugard, he always said, "We live our principles, we apply our principles, and then we stand by them." And I felt like that was such a huge part of the story of how this bill passed. So, maybe if you want to touch a little bit about, if you've been surprised about uh, what lobbyists say in committee, and then also how applying your principles really help to build relationships and get the cash bill passed specifically.
Yeah, so as far as building principles, like every law that I think about or every bill I think about voting on, I put it through the lens of the Bible first. Like, how would God want me to vote on this? That's first and foremost for anything. And sometimes that's easy decision. Sometimes it doesn't, Bible doesn't say, on a certain bill, like how you should vote on it, right? So you go down the line to, your other values and principles, how to vote on it. But I think people appreciate that they know you're going to stand on your principle, not just get lobbied by someone. I'm on the floor and I see lobbyists talking to people in front of me or behind me, trying to sway them, and they're coming to me next. Like they don't come to me because I think they know that he knows how he's going to vote. We can't change his mind. So I think that is speaks a lot, and I really appreciate that. They don't have to deal with that as much. Um, as far as lobbyists in the committee room, yeah, there's sometimes that they just say things like, the one on the cash bill, one cash bill I did is like, oh, we're gonna have to pay someone to buy a pop out of the pop machine for us if this bill passes. I mean, it just is crazy. Crazy things aren't true at all, but they have to say them, and that's whatever. So, before I got elected, like, I always speak the truth and expect other people speak the truth too, right? And I assumed that that's the way it was going to be. Once I got to Pierre, I learned that that's not the way it is. You just have to watch out, just guard yourself, run everything what people says through a lens, through a filter. And maybe I'm too gullible sometimes. I like to expect the best of people, but you just got to learn that not everybody does acts the way that I do. But
However, the way that you do act and your reputation for being honest and honorable has certainly grown relationships. And like you've said, that bridge building I think is really important. And it certainly appeared to have been in your career, right? I mean, I've witnessed for the first time ever some bills that have gone through with unanimous consent. For example, Jana Hunt brought forward a bill last year, and not a single person voted against it because it was just good legislation, and we led with truth and honesty. And I think this bill was the cash bill is a little bit harder to get passed, but maybe you could help expand on that process a little bit and then explain where your Senate sponsor came in and how you guys led with the facts from empirical sources like the Federal Reserve, for example.
yeah, so I started the bill in the House because I'm a House member, so I wanted to start it in my chamber. So started in the House, got it through committee, went good through there, and in the on the House floor, I was trying to get votes, and I knew it was going to be close. End up, there's 70 in the House, so we need 36 to pass a bill, 35 plus one, and we had 34 votes on the first time it went through, but two people were missing. So I had, reconsidered, hoping those two would come back and get it to pass. They came back. I think we had 35 votes the next time. So it still didn't pass. So it was dead. So, do I just let it go and worry about it next year? Or do we try to do it again? So I found, Mr. Blanc, on the Senate side. This was like hours before the deadline to introduce a bill. Found Greg. I was like, hey, Senator Blanc, would you, start it in the Senate for me? Because, start in the Senate, come back to the House. And he's like, sure, I'll do that with you. So, like within, I
Well,
think it was, go
and
ahead.
if I may interject just very briefly, how often does it happen where a senator will just say, "Oh, sure, I'll do that for you"? Is that rare, or it's
That's rare.
not a
And yeah, and that's a test of character because, they usually want to know what the bill's about, know they agree with it, and, know what they're doing when they say it. But I think, because he trusted my character, he's like, well, if you want to do that, then I trust you. I think it'll be a good bill, so I'll go ahead and I'll do that with you. So that was good to have that rapport built up that we knew we could trust each other, that he would, go along with that. Because the time was of the essence. Like it was 11:30, by noon it had to be decided we're going to do it or not. So we just got it under the wire that we could get it introduced in the Senate side. So then he took it, he's kind of like, okay, it's your baby. So like, I'll introduce it, but I want you to do, and Susan helped us to do the lifting on the Senate committee. So we started in the Senate committee, got it out of committee, fine, no problems. went to the Senate floor, and I think they got like 19 votes. They needed, 17, so we had a couple extra votes there. So I was really feeling really good about that. Come back to the House committee. We knew it, go through that again because the same committee, went through the first time. So then we just had to get it to the Senate floor, and I tried to convince, all the no votes that, we should get this through. Not very many I could convince, but one older gentleman, he's like, I went to my kid's basketball game the other day and I showed up with cash and they won't let me in, so I'm voting for your bill. So I was like, it just resounded with people that they appreciated what I was doing. They thought it was a good thing. And even some of the schools would testify in the committee hearings that, oh, that's not true. We do take cash, even though Susan has on record that they didn't. So they were just not telling the truth in committee, which I didn't appreciate, which you probably understand. But yeah, so that's how it went through. It was just amazing. We're just flying high after that vote came through, and then we got to go to the governor. The governor signed it in front of us, and that was exciting to get my first bill passed and signed. So
That's awesome. Congratulations again on that. And
yeah.
just to sort of summarize the bill, so the bill is not a mandate on any private institutions, but publicly funded schools, right? You
It's
want to
it does apply to private schools that are
oh,
playing, any high school sanctioned sport. So
sure.
Old Norman, Sioux Falls Christian, any Christian school that plays basketball with high school association, or any sport with high school association, it does apply to them too. So
Right. But it just effectively it just requires them to accept cash as a medium of exchange though, right?
correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay. All right.
Yep.
So I just wanted to summarize that in case anybody was unfamiliar with this particular piece of legislation.
Yeah.
Um
And
and, and go
I've
ahead.
gotten lots of people calling me this summer, like, "Hey, I can get into the track meet and pay cash for it." And there's long lines of people paying cash. And thank you for getting this done. And we can use cash. So people really appreciated it and reached out to me and thanked me for it, which I didn't expect. So yeah, it's something people really appreciated.
Well, I think it's a really good piece of policy, especially as our high schools and middle schools across South Dakota are starting to have, zero cell phone rules. For example, they're asking students to leave their phones at home, excuse me. So it makes sense when going to sporting events, most teenagers use their phone to tap to pay. Most teens and kids don't have a credit card or, bank account, but they have, like an account on their phone, like PayPal or whatever.
Yep.
And then, so when they're leaving their phone at home, it really makes a lot of sense to be able to have cash to be able to transact at school events, sporting events, to buy lunch, right? So it's a good piece of policy. It makes a lot of sense. But I also just really I loved the fact that Senator Blanc said, we have to be right with God first and foremost. And he really pushed yourself and Susan to get the facts about the bill, to get the facts about transaction fees and how much money is leaving the state of South Dakota, in terms of just transaction fees to out of state banks, how much money we can keep in the state if we make sure that we're using cash, for example, and the fact that it really excludes, low income families and, you know, minorities and people who don't have access to either credit cards or even a cell phone for that matter. So low income and elderly families. And I just thought the whole way that it came together was really phenomenal. I just love the story. And I think, especially as, we find ourselves in more politically tumultuous times, I wanted to have the opportunity to spotlight what bridge building looks like and what, personally, I would like to see more of as a voter from my representatives and the people that I'm sending to represent, on behalf of my family to represent me and to work on good pieces of policy. And so, as we wrap up, I was wondering if maybe you could give me some advice. For example, let's pretend that I was going to run for office, or Anybody who is watching, for example, is either running for office or considering, different candidates who are running for office. As someone who has worked, with various different types, personality types, and colleagues, what advice would you give to to look for? To what questions would you ask if, for example, if you were in on this side again, knowing what you do now, what are the traits? What are the things that you would look for, hoping that an individual either running or voting for someone who is running would have going into the legislative process? Like, in summary, how do we pick better people to represent ourselves and our families in the legislative process?
Yeah, well, I would, ask them, and people to ask us at the door too, do you vote your principles? Well, what are your principles, first of all, and do they align with my principles? Do they, are they biblically based, or God honoring? Are you going to vote with your principles, what you think is right? Are you going to vote with what someone's telling you to vote? Are you going to, you got a donor that really wants you to do this? Are you going to vote that way, no matter if you agree with that or not? Or are you going to vote the way you want to vote? What you think is right about, it can be several different subjects, but and we got friends that a lot of us stick together. Sometimes we disagree on how we're going to vote on something. That's okay because it's principled. And I don't vote because someone else says, well, I think you should do this, and I don't agree with them because I just wouldn't feel right about that. So I think just asking them, are you going to what are your principles? Are you going to follow those principles when you're there? And sometimes we don't know everything. We need to rely on others to help us to figure stuff out sometimes. But,
Sure.
and are you, teachable, and, can you learn that? But I really do think that if you can, build a coalition, work together, and even, some of us in peer, like we think differently, but we can still at night go bowling or, play pool or something, still get along and still be friends. Even some people, Democrats, who don't we know we're different everything. We can still have fun and just be friends. So I think that's important too, to not just get stuck in your own thing and not talk to the other side. Because sometimes you have a misconception of them, and if you just talk about it, you learn the other side better and can figure things out and make stuff better. But yeah, definitely, especially in South Dakota, where we're mostly Republicans, don't just say, I'll vote for the Republican in the primary season. Figure out who's running as Republicans, know what they stand for, and vote for the one that you agree with. So.
Thank you so much. Well, I really appreciate your time. I'm so grateful that you were able to hop on and share this wonderful story. And also talk to us about leading with your principles and how to coalition and bridge build. I think these are all incredibly important things that we need to continue to look for within our representatives and our leaders. And I want to thank you very much once again for all of your hard work on behalf of everyone here in South Dakota. And if people want to follow you, or donate to your reelection campaign, where would they find you?
I'm on Facebook let me just look here I'm Sjaarda for SD. My website, oh, I should have been prepared for you here. Um, I'm on John, oh no, I should have been prepared.
Put you on the spot there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I haven't been 2 years since I campaigned to remember this stuff, but I'm on Facebook at Sjaarda for SD, and my website, oh man, I don't have
That's
that.
okay. How about
Oh,
just if people want to follow you, they just want to follow your work.
yeah.
Facebook is the best place
Find me on
then?
Facebook. Yeah, yep. Sharda for SD. So,
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Representative Sjaarda, and we hope you'll join us again.
yep. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it. Bye.
Let's see. All right.